What is something that your parents did that you swore never to repeat to your own kids? Really poor food choices. Same, I was raised on Hot Pockets and those instant lunch cups. Constantly comparing myself to other people's kids and belittling my own achievements. That's just the equivalent of comparing your parents' wages, house or job with other kids' parents. Refused to admit I was wrong. The only semblance of an apology I've ever received from my mother was, "I'm sorry, * you feel that way, *." I don't think she's ever actually apologized or taken blame for her actions in my 30-odd conscious years. When I was little, when my dad was doing anything out in the yard, my brother and I would ask if we could help. The answer was always, "You can help by staying out of the way." My kids are always allowed to help, and so feel they can contribute, grow a sense of self-worth, and an appreciation of group effort. This has been the hardest thing for me as a parent, but I'm working on it. My 4-year-old wants to help me do absolutely everything, but sometimes I just don't have the time to spend doing something in 30 minutes that should have taken 5. He loves helping with the laundry and dishes though. I'm just leery about cooking. Mine is official stirrer and taster. Also, just tall enough for the cheese drawer. So cheese getter. If letting her help increases the task by 25 minutes but reduces my pretend play responsibilities by 25 min, then hell yes. I feel bad. I loved it as a kid. I know it's important, but I hate pretend play. Never actually saying I love you. Yep. Never once heard my parents say these words. I make sure my son knows I love him. Every single day. He's 20 and probably tired of it. But too bad. Lol. Username checks out. That's so wholesome. Tell me I depress them when I confide in them, monsieur. Sorry dude. When I came out about it, my mom blamed me and said, "Why are you doing this to me?" Like I made up 10 plus years of depression to get at her or something. It's not a good feeling and I get it. God yeah, I love my mom, but whenever I tell her how shit I feel, she makes me feel awful for telling her. I always make the mistake of confiding in her and then regret it each time. Be unapproachable. Come talk to me anytime about anything. Everything can be fixed. My son hides things from his mom and waits until he can tell me because she won't respond appropriately. He lost a video game and was lying to her about having lost it, but was so scared that she would find out he was lying. He told me in the car when I picked him up, and I told her I needed to look for something of his that he wanted. All he ended up doing was having it wedged in his game case where he couldn't see it. My 6-year-old was giving himself anxiety because of a stupid Nintendo Switch game because his mom would have belittled and spanked him instead of helping look for it. It breaks my heart. Edit. We're divorced. Biggest fattest lie my mom ever told me. Always told me I could trust her with anything. The time came when I wanted to come out as bi. Told me that I was a sexual deviant and can take care of myself from now on since I was thinking of sex. Practically had to beg and kiss her feet to not kick me out. I said it was all a lie. Mind you, I was 17 at the time. The worst part is that she claimed that my sexuality depressed her because she wanted a daughter to fuck a man and have kids. I don't know if I'll ever fuck a man, nor do I want kids. Because I said so. I always have a reason why I ask them to do something. If they ask why, I'll explain. I'll explain my reason. My reasons for my reason. Various other factors I considered. I can go on for a while. They know this. The other day I asked my 7-year-old to do something. She said, "Why?" I thought about it for a second. I asked, "Is because I said so a good enough reason?" She thought about it for a second, said, "Yeah," for about 3 seconds. I felt like I nailed parenting. Okay, I totally agree with this. My only thing is I have a nephew that always questions why before following directions, and I'm terrified that if he goes in the road and I tell him to get back on the sidewalk, he will question first instead of listening and then get hit by a car. Probably just me being paranoid though. Here it's more. I don't mind explaining, but finish what I've asked you to do first, please. I can justify myself. That's fine. But sometimes what I say needs done right now. So let's do that first and then talk about it. Only exceptions being things that may hurt them or cause them to hurt someone else. In that case, they're encouraged to speak up before they follow through. I won't scorn them or yell at them when they mess up. I was a really sensitive kid. So when my parents told me to go to hell or called me a fucking moron, it tore at me and distorted my self-image. If I have kids, I can't imagine ever doing to them what my parents did to me. Edit. This was my parents' attempt to get me to grow thicker skin. But words hurt. One thing led to another and depression began to take its hold. And at such a young age too. The thought of depression and self-hatred that required therapy sessions to manage terrified me. Thankfully, they took the hint and settled down. And I still keep in touch with them. Monsieur, were you actually sensitive? Because calling your child a moron and telling them to go to hell aren't considered good parenting skills. In fact, it's quite abusive. Beat me up. Child has black eyes from beatings. Father, you have your mother's eyes. As a victim of severe childhood trauma and abuse, I laughed out loud and got sad, teaching them by comparing them to their own better behaved, smarter siblings. In a very condescending manner. OFC. Shit. I was compared to other people's kids. Asterisk. Insert other kid's name. Asterisk would never do that to their parent. Quote dot. If you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. That was stupid to me at 10 years old. My dad used to say that to me when I was younger, but instead I just cry more and he just gave up. I also would tattle on him to my mom and she'd get after high. Monsieur, he never actually did anything. Wake them from a dead sleep. On a school night, to introduce them to my drunk friends I just came home with. Because I'm a bartender. Oh shit, you reminded me of another one. I will never get drunk out and make my son come find me and bring me home in the middle of the night before his high school finals. I will never make him bail me out of jail using personal favors. Threads like this make me want to say I'll never do anything that my mother did. But that simplifies a very complicated feeling. When my mother loved me, I felt like the greatest person in the world. It's complicated. Put the other parent first. I remember my mom left me and my cousin at a Claire's an hour after closing because she had to make sure her husband was fed and settled. I still feel for that Claire's employee that sat with us after closing. Edit. No, my stepdad was not abusive. My mom was just overcompensating because of how unhappy she was when she was with my dad. Greater than, she had to make sure her husband was fed and settled. What is he? A toddler? Can't he feed himself, or does he need a bottle and burping after? I think that's what drives me nuts. He was super upset with her for not getting us and she wouldn't tell him where we were, so he couldn't just come get us himself. My mom was this way too. Not like, leave her kids somewhere and shit. She really was, still is a fantastic mom. But super, I've got to get home and cook for my husband, or, no. I can't go to that event because my husband will be home. I remember hating my stepdad for years. Then one day I overheard him tell my mom, "It's not a big deal. Go, I can get my own food. And I've got plenty of stuff to do while you're not home to keep me occupied." It was in that moment that I realized it was her choice and not his demand for her to be that way. Then as I got even older, I realized she was that way with him because her first two husbands were absolute garbage and she just genuinely loves and appreciates how good my stepdad is and never wanted to leave him feeling like he didn't have a dedicated wife. All of this has really impacted my own relationship, honestly. Damn, I feel like I'm in therapy. RN. Sorry for the long comment. LMAO. No offense, but what the fuck? I cannot fathom her thought process even a tiny bit. I'm sorry, you had to be raised by that woman. I was not allowed to have any friends or date. Also, I had my door taken off at 14 and told I didn't deserve privacy because I slammed it. Guilt tripping. Physical and emotional abuse. Edit. I asked to hang a sheet up for privacy and they said I didn't deserve privacy for slamming my door. I had my first ever panic attack that way and my stepdad told me to stop over-exaggerating. My depression and anxiety was always belittled. I was in a mental hospital and my dad and stepmom came to see me and my stepmom just kept telling me what a horrible person I was and that I was just there to get away from her. Also, my stepdad would call me a slut and punish me for things my brother did. He also molested me on several occasions, and when I told my mom, he convinced her I was lying. He told me my feelings didn't matter. But if my kid ever came forward and said something like that about my spouse, I wouldn't just not believe them and accuse them of lying. Yikes. My doorknob got removed because I kept spending too much time in my room instead of wanting to interact with mentally abusive parents. To this day, neither my room nor my bathroom door has a knob. There's just an empty hole. Not be affectionate. My mom was very distant and not a physically emotional person with me growing up. I realized that if I have kids, I'd want to read to them, hug them, celebrate their accomplishments. Overall, have them feel comfortable with me to share their thoughts or feelings. Use them as leverage against the other parent. Abuse them. Allow them to be abused by a significant other. Abandon them, then return years later once they've grown and try to cause them as much pain as possible for who knows why. I have 4 sons and I genuinely can't imagine doing most of what happened to me to them. Monsieur. Blows my mind. Lecture. My mom could go on for hours for even small misbehaviors. Somehow, it usually looped around to how I didn't keep my room clean, even though the rest of the house was just as much of a mess or worse. When I need to have a stern or serious discussion with my kids, I force myself to make my point in 5 minutes or less. I've even said stuff like, "Look, this is taking way too long. Just don't do disallowed thing again, okay?" Quote. I also apologize if I yell as soon as I am emotionally able to after an angry outburst. I don't remember mom ever doing that. I received so many lectures that went on for ages while just repeating the same things over and over again. It was so frustrating to hear something said for the 14th time asked if I understood. And even when a yes answer was given, the lecture still continued. Redo things they've done because it's not the exact way I would have done it. My mom would refold the laundry or remake my bed. Drove me nuts and made me feel like, why even bother trying? My mom is a neat and controlling freak in denial. For example, today, I actually wanted to clean our house, but I came to find out she already did. She asked me to do it yesterday, and then when I want to do it today, she had cleaned it all. Waiting one day for a clean house is not a tragedy. I cleaned the entire kitchen, top to bottom, out of spite. She saw me do so, and yet I know tomorrow she will do the whole thing over again. Also, every time I'm doing a task, she will check upon, tell me how she does it. I'm 24, mama, sure, I've learned how to manage our household. Having kids. There are plenty of people on this planet who should not have had children, and my parents definitely shouldn't have had them. Monsieur, I am not mentally stable enough for kids because of my mom's behavior towards me, so I've made the decision not to have any. The cycle ends with me. Damn. Beat me to it. My parents were great. They did everything right, I think. I have fond memories of growing up and being loved. That said, I don't think I could provide the same sort of life for any child of my own. I can't take care of a damn houseplant or a goldfish to save my life. There is no way I can remember to feed, bathe, clothe and care for a living creature while also fulfilling its complex emotional needs. Sorry, world, you're going to have to live without a crop of cock baby Karens. They wouldn't let me buy a video game system. Monsieur said it rots the brain. I never understood why watching TV is okay but not gaming. I've played video games ever since I left after high school. My son, daughter and I all enjoy them. It still stings when I think of that NES I wanted so bad back then. At least you're using your brain more while gaming. Don't waste time on it though. Train that super brain with late-night advertisements on the latest self-sharpening knife that also doubles as a whip. But that's not all. If you're on the first 100 callers, we'll chuck in another master self-sharpening knife whip. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.